Welcome to Land Speed Legends, a podcast talking to the men, the women, the legends that make land speed racing great. Discover the stories of these ordinary people whose passion for land speed racing has made them legendary. And now, here's your host, the Bonneville Belle, the High Boy Honey, the Salt Princess, Allison Volk-Dean.
From sprint cars to Indy Cars to Bonneville, Mike Nish was a racing machine. His racing career mirrored his life with thrilling ups and devastating downs, but like a legend, he overcame. His influence on land speed racing is undeniable. He entered the Bonneville 200-mile-an-hour Club and 300-mile-per-hour Chapter in 1996 with a speed of 304.700 miles per hour. He had many records and runs that excelled that speed, including a top speed of 412 miles per hour. Today, we celebrate the legendary Mike Nish. Okay, so we're going to be doing this one post-mortem of Mike Nish. Now, I originally went up to Mike probably maybe a month before he passed away and asked him if he would want to be on the podcast.
Right.
And he was so humble. He was like, I just don't think I'm legendary enough. And I'm like, well, yes, you are.
Right.
But it's not level. There's levels. I mean, everybody's legendary out there that's pushing the limits, but he definitely was pushing the limits on everything he did. It seemed like
Mike ran wide open.
That's right.
His entire life, which is probably why at 62 he's not here, right?
Yeah.
But he loved every minute.
Yep. Yeah.
While he was here.
Yeah. So this will be awesome because this is going to, I'm going to put this out the week of his celebration of life that we're going to have. So I think this is just a great little way to add to the celebration of life, to talk about the legendary Mike Nish, which I wish I could have got to do in person, but I have the next best thing. I have
this is going to be way better. This is going to be the real story.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, right. We don't ever want to talk about all the bad stuff we do. But but now it's the patriarch of the family.
Yeah, there
I'm
you
the
go.
oldest one standing. That's the deal.
So we got the legendary Jeff Nish here to talk about the legendary Mike Nish. And so we're just going to start with just the beat like we do with all of them. We're going to start with the beginnings and Mike's beginning love of all racing, including Bonneville. But go ahead and just tell us where he started out.
I mean, again, I talked when we were discussing in my podcast, was we grew up in the race car shop. I mean, that's all we knew as kids. And when Mike was 12, he got a job out of Ford Motor Salvage for Ed Monahan. And he would go out and strip parts off the cars. But his whole goal was to get Ed to build him a mini stock. So when he was 14, he started driving mini stocks at Bonneville Raceway. And his rookie year, he was Rookie of the Year and won the championship. So I was thinking about this as I was watching our little kids at the go-kart track 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we had 5 years old to Brady's 36.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we had 5 years old Swayze. And how old was...
Wyatt's 9 and Nash is 11.
11. And Chase is 14.
And then we have...
Heston, I think, is... Maybe 12 or 13.
Yeah, yeah.
What a group of kids. They did a great job.
It's going to be so much fun.
It was so much fun. I haven't had that much fun on the track in a long time.
Good.
So, Mike was he was very talented right from the beginning. And I think that's what drove my dad to immediately envision that Mike was going to the Speedway. There was nothing that was going to stop that from happening. And that wasn't like an afterthought of 10 years later. That was like day one.
Yeah.
That was Dad's focus, was that Mike would get to Indianapolis. Excuse me. So our racing program was really geared around Mike.
Okay.
Mike got all the good equipment. He was the oldest, right?
Okay, he is.
He's the oldest, and so he got all the good equipment. He got all the good opportunities, and he used them mostly wisely.
Yeah.
Right? So when he started running sprint cars would have been about 1975.
Okay.
His first sprint car attempt, he forgot his leg. We had like leg things to hold your legs in place, and he'd forgot his. So as you're going through the corner, his legs are flopping around in the car. So he decided he was going to take his belt and tie it to the roll cage and keep his leg up against there. Well, one of the crew guys, considering the crew guys were all 16, right? Somebody forgot to latch the fuel cap down.
Sounds familiar.
And when Mike went in the corner, the fuel cap came off and the car burst into flames and he couldn't get out. And it burned him severely. I mean, it took months for him to heal from that. But that didn't deter him at all. I mean, he just was waiting for the next. And
he was 16 at this time.
16.
Wow.
So then he got another opportunity to drive Bill Chipman's car. And he ran a few races, I think, in between him getting burned and him flipping one out of the ballpark at Bonneville. Completely out of the ballpark. Landed on a 69 Camaro, cherry car, destroyed his car.
Bitchin' Camaro, huh? You ruined it.
But if there was a hole, if there was an opening, Mike was going to stick his nose in it. I mean, and I was a little bit more conservative. Mike was very aggressive. And so he drove that way his whole life, So as time went on, he was a very good sprint car driver. But this is where, we can talk about the story a little bit more. Keeping in mind, we were 16 years old, 17. We were traveling around the country with our dad, Butch Pease, Cease McRae. In other words, we didn't have a lot of parental oversight, right?
And TJ was with you too, as well.
TJ, so and then all of our buddies were the crews.
Okay, and right? All three of you were racing at the same time.
Yeah, so there'd be 3 adults and 10 of us kids, right? Well, the track promoter sometimes would bring beer down to the pits after and like, hey, you guys did a great job, and we'd go, hey, thanks, and so that just became part of it. We were just drinking beer, chasing girls, racing cars, right?
Sounds kind of dreamy, actually, I'm sure, for some guys.
And so, I think that's where, Mike had a very serious addiction to alcohol his whole life, from the time he was a teenager until he died, and so we'll kind of touch on that as we go. It was there were some high points of his life, but there was definitely some really, really, really low points. And I think it's important to talk about that because I'm not ashamed of it as family. It's part of Mike's story.
Yeah.
It's
a great part of his story, actually.
It's just a part of his story. So Dad was, he was solely focused on getting Mike to the Speedway. So in about 1980, Mike would have started driving for other teams. 88, yeah, about 80. He drove for Don Edmonds back in California. He drove for, trying to think of the other team, but he was driving CRA, right? The California Racing Association.
Okay.
And he lived in California. Dad moved him back there when he was maybe 19.
Wow.
And that's what Mike did. He worked at the race car shop, building sprint cars during the day, and he raced on the weekends. And he did good. He did very well in that time. But again, not a lot of oversight, right? So he kind of had a free rein to do what he wanted and hang out where he wanted. And so as time goes on, he gets really good at sprint car racing. So the whole family, we went in 1982, right? We went to South Africa. And that was kind of Dad's, I'm retiring. No, he didn't say I'm retiring. He said, you guys, when we come home from here, all you need to get your own ride. I'm not
supporting you anymore in this.
I'm not paying any more for this. We left all the race cars there. And Mike kicked butt in South Africa.
And this was sprint car racing in South Africa.
Yeah, he killed it. I mean, I can't remember. I think he had 7 wins.
Wow.
He killed it in South Africa.
How long were you guys there for?
2 months.
2 months. Wow.
And we just would travel. We'd race on Thursdays and Saturdays, different tracks, and we'd move from one town to the next. And so we just traveled over.
I've heard you talk about this, and I didn't realize it was 2 months that you were there. That's crazy.
So my dad did that since 1972 was the first time he went, and until 1980, he went every year.
Wow.
For 2 months.
I didn't know that.
So Mike just killed it. TJ was 14. We had to get him out of school. We had to get him out of school to go. It was quite the deal, but it was a lot of fun. And so when we came back from South Africa, it was like, okay, everybody's got to get your own stuff going. And so we did. I started driving for Kent Noley. Mike went back to California, went back on the CRA circuit, and was doing well. Then he got to go to South Africa before the Indy Car era. He got to go to South Africa and run Formula Fords and Formula Vs, Formula 2, and Formula V.
Okay.
He got to run in South Africa at Kailami, and that's where he got his FIA license. So he had an FIA super license. He could have gone to run Formula 1.
Wow.
At that point, he had the licensing to do that. So.
And do you need that to run Indy cars too?
You don't need to have an FIA license, but you do need to be certified. You need to have some super license.
Yeah.
But the FIA license just made it easy for him.
Yeah.
So he crashed a couple cars there, nothing too serious. But one wreck that he had was in a midget. This right before the Indy era started, he was at Phoenix. And he flipped a midget at PIR on the mile. And Dad called me and he said, hey, I don't know. I don't know if your brother's going to make it. He said the whole front of his helmet smashed. Arm got out. No, that was before arm restraints. And his arm got out and it tore so they had to reconstruct his arm. And he was out for, I think, 2 weeks, like comatose.
Oh, wow.
And, we just didn't know at that point whether he was, going to make it. And I really wondered if that would be the end of his driving career, but no, not
for Mike.
Didn't even phase him. So he continued to, just work hard, sprint car racing and drinking.
Wide open.
So
on
he
both.
worked wide open on both of those.
And so what year was that crash?
So the crash in the midget probably would have been about 1985.
Okay.
85, 86. In 1987, he was actually the first time he went back to the Speedway. So he had a deal with Dick Simons. They go back. Now, I wasn't going back, but Dad was staying in, Indianapolis because he was overseeing, making sure this deal was going to happen. Mike had worked for Dick for a year in the shop to go race the car. And they get to the Speedway, and Mike runs the car through rookie orientation, and then he runs it all month. This is back when it was a month-long production. They started on the 1st of May, and they ran until the 25th, So he was on the track. He had a ton of miles on that car. He did all the hard work, right, to get the car up to speed. And the day before qualifying, Raul Bozel shows up at Dick Simon's office with a case full of cash, rolls in, Mike's out. And I mean, there was a lot of discussion at the track about Sue and Dick.
Yeah.
Because they had a contract, they'd paid the money. That
spent time.
That was required. They spent all the effort and time to get there, and it was tough.
Yeah.
So I was reading my dad's biography, and he talks about that moment. They're standing outside the garage. Mike had pushed his toolbox out. He had his helmet and a driving suit sitting on top of it. And, everybody's pretty bummed, right?
I mean, the walk of shame kind of.
It was really it was like a bummed deal,
Yeah.
And Dad's standing there, and AJ Foyt walks up and doesn't know my dad, and he says, hey, where's that Nish kid? And my dad says, well, he went out to his car, went over to one of the other garages to get something. And he goes, but I'm his dad, I'm Terry. And he shook his hand, and Foyt says, well, just tell him to roll his toolbox and his helmet and his stuff over to my garage. I got a ride for him.
Crazy.
So you go
incredible.
from this, you go from this low of, oh my gosh, we just lost our deal, and you only get one of those usually, right?
Yeah.
You get one opportunity. I had one opportunity with Don Vesco. And I got my license for kart with Don. And it never materialized.
Yeah.
The race never materialized, So you only get these opportunities are hard to get.
Yeah.
So, think about basketball. There's how many teams? 32?
Yeah.
How many players are on a team? 20?
Yeah.
Indy, there's 33 guys, period, right? There's not 33 teams with 10 guys on each team. There's 33 spots. So Mike gets back, rolls over to Foyt, but he has to go back to Houston. So he moves to Houston to work for AJ with the commitment he'll drive the following season. So he does that. They get to the speedway. He's killing it. I mean, he's fast. Car is super, super fast. And he's out qualifying. And I'm standing next to the block where AJ's standing. And AJ's on the radio with Mike. And Mike turns a lap like 222. And Foyt tells him 216. Mike runs another lap, 223. Foyt tells him 217.5, or something like that, right? So Mike's pushing this car because he thinks he's way slower
That's so
than he is, And he comes off the turn 4 short chute onto the straightaway and smacks the fence. He'd have been sitting on the front row, maybe the second row. If maybe AJ would have just let him be.
Yeah.
And let him run his laps, And actually, AJ apologized to my dad after and said, I probably pushed him too hard, And then he fired him. Yeah, that's how it goes, right? You busted my car up, you're fired. So we do another walk of shame, and we roll out of Foyt's garage. And I can't believe his luck. The machinist union, the owner, the Andy Kanapensky, the chief guy for the machinist union, catches Mike out in the parking lot and says, I want you to come drive for us. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Right?
This is kind of like a day in the life of Mike, right? Like it's these highs and these
just
lows.
highs and these lows.
And all these opportunities and missed opportunities. And so the machinist union, Mike rolls over, and I don't want to take too much time because I want to talk about Bonneville. But take your, you got it. There's no limit.
He goes to work for the machinist union, and they bring a car to the track the next year, which would have been 87, I think, 88. Anyway, the car is not fast. It's a year-old car. It's just not going to get there. So here we are. It's the last day of qualifying. We're standing on the wall, and Mike's just sitting on the wall like, I don't even know if we planned on going out. He was in line to qualify, but I don't know in his mind if he was even going to. So AJ Foyt comes riding his bicycle down the pit lane, and he pulls up to Mike and he says, it's too bad you work for these guys because I got that Chevy ready to qualify.
He's like, you fired me.
And I'm sitting here again going, are you kidding me? And the owner of the machinist union says, AJ, take him. This car, we're not going to get this car in. It's too slow. So, boom, we go into thrash mode, right? Mike runs down to the garage, changes driving suits into an AJ Foyt, which he still had from being fired before, right?
He hadn't turned it in yet.
Hadn't turned it in. So he goes and changes his suit, comes back out, gets in line. They push the car up. You got to go through inspection. They roll him up. He goes through inspection. They start the car. They roll him off the blocks. They start it. The guy's got his hand up holding him back. It's like 5 minutes to 6. And at 6, the gun goes off. Qualifying's over. If you're on the track before the gun goes off, you can qualify. So Mike's sitting there, and all of a sudden I hear the guy puts his hands up to his earphones, and he goes, there's rain in turn 1. And within a minute, it was just a torrential downpour. So Mike's sitting in the car, it's running, and you hear the gun. Another year.
Oh, yeah, gone.
Shot. So now remember, me and TJ are sitting back here. This is a sport of families. Unsers, Andretti's, Laziers. When one brother gets in, generally
you guys are on the sideline, rubbing your hands together.
the other kids are at least there's
opportunity.
at least an opportunity comes, you know. So we're working our butts off, doing our sprint car stuff, doing our, you know, building our resumes, hoping that Michael just bust through that barrier, you know. So they have the later in the year at Phoenix, Mike goes back to the machinist union, goes to work after Indy. At Phoenix, the last race of the year, they announce they have a big hospitality tent, and they announce they're signing Mike to a 16-race deal, including Indy, for the following season. We're there, right?
Yeah.
We're there.
We're in.
Mike, with big party. Mike gets super drunk. And who knows who's thinking what.
Is this the day of the race?
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
At Phoenix.
But like they're going to race that day.
No.
Oh, it's the night before.
No. They are signing him to the next year.
Oh, okay.
It's the last race of the season, and they're signing him to a full contract for the following season. He goes and, well, first of all, he ran Toronto for the machinist union during that year. After Foyt's deal, he crashed in Toronto hard, broke his legs and his back. So he was healing, right? He was healing at the time, and they said, "Okay, you'll be healed up. We're going to put you in the car next year for a full deal." And anyway, they load this truck full of vodka and beer, and he's going to bring that back to Salt Lake because my dad probably supplied it, right?
Yeah.
He's going to pick some of his stuff up and go to, you know, back to Indy.
Okay.
And his wife's with him at the time. His wife at the time was with him. And at about Kanab, he passed out, fell asleep, whatever, flipped that truck, threw him out, re-broke his back, re-broke his legs, broke her back. And that was the end of Mike's IndyCar career.
And your guys's.
and all of ours.
You're not.
That was a very, very low. The next couple of years, Mike was in desperate situation.
He was in a bad place.
He was in a bad place. You know, alcohol and he was just in a bad spot. And I know that he knew he was responsible for it. It was just a very bad time.
Yeah.
Lots of DUIs, just lots of problems.
Right.
And it was quite a ride. Those years were just
exciting.
It was exciting, and it was disappointing, and it was just everything that racing is, you know.
Right.
I mean, it was hard. I think he felt, you know, really bad about what happened.
Oh, I'm sure.
And it just tore him up. Then he decided that he was going to come home and just go to work for Dad. Forget about racing. You know, he's just going to get his life together. So he did. He came home, went to rehab, met his wife, Lori, had 2 kids, and he starts on a 25-year journey of sobriety.
Yeah.
Right? He's on the board of directors at the Haven. Mike helped hundreds, if not thousands, of addicts.
Yeah.
And alcoholics.
Yeah.
Hundreds, if not thousands. He dedicated his life during that 20 years to the Haven and his kids and sobriety and AA. And it was pretty amazing to watch him. He was, what a great father. You know, he got his kids started in go-kart racing. And at this time, he wasn't worried about himself, you know.
Yeah.
So he raised Andy and Olivia and turned Andy into an animal.
Yeah.
I could not believe watching him race last week.
Yeah, that was the first time I've ever seen him race. It was amazing to watch.
I've only seen him a few times, and that kid could drive. And I was pretty shocked, actually. What is it?
It was fun to watch
125 Pro Shifter.
Yeah.
And first time he'd ever drove one. Brand new cart, and he finished second. And I mean, he put the pressure on Mike Beanie the whole time, and so it was good, you know. But so why he couldn't help himself when I watched him take people to AA meetings and do whatever needed to happen as a sponsor, you know. But in the under all of that, he was still an alcoholic.
Yeah.
You know, it never, ever, ever left him.
Yeah.
So at the time, I'm running up Bonneville with your dad, and my dad doesn't understand why I'm running up Bonneville. He's giving me a bunch of crap about it all the time, right? And then they get a hold, him and Vesco team up. After I'm done running Vesco's liner, they team up and they rebuild the car, and now they're at Bonneville.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, and not just at Bonneville, like they're full bore
They
into
are
Bonneville.
full bore in. And we let's just take 1 second. This is just... interesting.
Yeah. This is interesting.
It's this one right here. Let me find this. And I'm just going to run through them, Allison.
Yeah, do it.
86, Jeff Nish, 220. 87, Jeff Nish, 201. That's where Jeff Nish drops off the map.
Well, that was the end of your...
Terry Nish, 94, 291. These are all records, right?
But you were the first, Jeff. Just remember that.
I know. Dave Spangler, 95, 302. Terry Nish, 95, 315. Terry Nish, 95, 330. Terry Nish, October 95, 320. Terry Nish, 95, 320, 261. Now he's switching classes, right?
Yeah.
And doing the FIA and the LSA records. Terry Nish, 96, 289.
Just keep going up, 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 up.
Terry Nish, 96, 300. Terry Nish, 96, 304. Terry Nish, 97, 322. Now Mike kind of takes over the car, right?
Was Mike involved at this point, though?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
He just started
Dad
racing.
was driving. And this was when Dad was starting to get sick, right? He was starting to have his lung issues.
Yeah.
So Mike Nish, 96, 304. Terry Nish, 97, 322. Mike Nish, 97, 328. They let Jeff drive again, 344.
Just saying.
Just saying. TJ Nish, 332. So that put all four of us in the 3 club.
3 chapter, yeah.
Up in the 3 chapter. So Terry Nish, 98, 338. June of 99. Terry Nish, 231. Terry Nish, 99, 272. Mike Nish, 99, 276. Mike Nish, 01, 344. Mike Nish, November 1, 01, 269. Mike Nish, 02, 331. Mike Nish, 02, 244. Pam Curtis, 03, 387. Jimmy Wysong, 03, 310. Mike Nish, 04, 369. Mike Nish, 04, 377. Mike Nish, 04, 377. Mike Nish, 2010, 285. Mike Nish FIA, 2010, 285. And then Mike Nish in the AA at the FIA shootout.
Yeah.
He ran 412.
Ooh.
Didn't back that up.
Yeah.
But that was the fastest one way. It was 412. So all the records averaged together were 302.395. If you just do the family records, 348.294.
That's crazy.
So during this period of time, Mike's sober, and he's like a fighter pilot, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're sticking him in that car, and they're just changing motors out, and he loved land speed racing, loved it. It's sad now. I go to the shop. It's a little sad.
Yeah.
I go down and I go in, especially if I'm by myself, I go in and the car is sitting in there, and I'm trying to figure out, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Andy's gonna drive it in August, and we're gonna go through the C record, which is Vesco's record, and I think it's 332, 336. But so Mike breaks all these records, right? Then my dad passes away.
Yeah.
And he immediately falls off the wagon and starts drinking again, and drinks so hard that he was almost gone.
Mm-hmm.
And he had to go to jail, and so we had to go get him.
Yeah.
And I mean,
it was hard to see.
At his house, he was almost gone.
Yeah.
We took him to the jail, and I told the jail, I said, look, he's going to detox, and it's going to be ugly. You guys need to keep an eye on this. And they didn't.
No.
And so they let him lay in there for 2 days, just in agony.
Yeah.
Until one of the inmates went and finally said, you guys better go do something or he's going to die in there.
Right.
And so he took
and alcohol, and I think benzos and alcohol are the only two drugs that you can really die from detoxing from.
It was bad. So
that was dangerous.
They moved him to the hospital, and they finally got a hold of me, and I got up there, and he looked horrible. And I think they thought he was a homeless guy because the jail had brought him in.
Yeah.
And I walked in there, and he's got this wound on his leg, and it's all bad, right? And I'm like, why are you guys not taking care of this? And they said, well, we can only do so much because he's from the jail. And I said, hey, he's got money. He's got insurance. And they're like, he does. And I'm like, yes. Please.
He's got insurance. Oh, dear.
So Christmas Eve, I get a phone call from the hospital, and the doctor tells me, hey, you need to come and get your brother. And I said, I can't take him. He's got to go back to the jail. And the doctor's like, no way. He cannot go back there. You need to come pick him up. I'll call the jail, and I'll make sure everything's clear. So he moved in with Mel and I. And I mean, my sweet wife, to her to open her door. Yeah. And folks, it was bad. It was ugly.
Yeah.
And so Mike moved in our house. And for the first 2 months, it was just getting him to understand what happened. And he thought he'd been in an automobile accident. He had no clue what had happened.
Yeah.
And so we started down this path, right, of getting him healthy.
Yeah.
And
it was a path of redemption. Like, he was on it.
He was on it, man. I mean, he looked so good. And he got his horse.
Yeah.
And he would go down to the barn every day. It was race cars and horses. That's all that mattered, And he was as happy as I've ever seen him. And I truly believe, but you don't ride that hard. You don't run that hard that long.
Yeah.
Without wearing your body out. And I think that's what it was. He just, he didn't want to get too old. He didn't want to be an old man.
Yeah.
He watched my dad die and took care of him. He didn't want to go like that. And so he just wore himself out.
Yeah.
And interesting though, during that period of time, during that 2 years that he lived with Mel and I, him and I had a lot of long talks. And I held him responsible for Indy. I did.
It's probably good for him.
I forced him to finally go, yeah, if I wouldn't have been drinking and I would have been paying 100% attention to what was happening, that probably all would have came out differently.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to hear him say it.
Yeah.
It's
probably a relief to him too. Like,
yeah.
got that off my chest.
Got that off my chest, So he was a great driver.
Yeah.
He was a great dad. He was, as brothers 5 years ago, I wouldn't have given you the time to do this today.
Yeah.
We just weren't in that place, And I guess that's a lot of, me feeling like you had all the opportunities and didn't seize it.
Yeah.
And him feeling like, I don't know. But once we were together for 2 years in my basement, right, it was like we hashed out our childhood.
Yeah.
Like, I did not grow up with the same father you grew up with, and those things, we just had to hash through that. And him to go, he didn't understand it.
Yeah.
He didn't understand my relationship with my dad, and his relationship with my dad was two completely different things. You just look at his accomplishments. And I could sit here with this paper.
Oh, it's amazing.
And tell you, how many sprint car wins and how many Indy Cars starts. And it's amazing stuff.
Yeah.
So he lived the way he wanted to. He was fast. He was furious, and again, we talk about alcoholism, addiction.
Yeah.
He was such a good dad.
Yeah. When he was,
when he had the kids and had that accountability to raise his children, after he got divorced, he had them.
Yeah.
And so Mike was Dr. Dennis, had to go to school for him, had to take him to volleyball. Olivia was an accomplished volleyball player. Andy was an accomplished racer. So he was really busy. And, I love him now. It really took me, to get back together to really say that.
Yeah.
I mean, I really miss him. I really love him. And I go to the shop and it makes me sad, Yeah. It really does. It makes me sad.
I love that you had the opportunity to rekindle your brotherhood, I guess, because I think that was important. I mean, it would have been, it could have ended it could have ended another way looking at him.
I wished everybody had that opportunity.
Right. Right.
I watched Mike take care of my dad when he was passing away. Mm-hmm. When Dad was really sick, and I would go down and do stints. Mike would say, "Hey, I need a break. Can you come and do a day?" And I would go down, and I couldn't connect on the same level, that Mike had with my dad. Mm-hmm. I loved him, but I just couldn't connect on that same level. When Dad passed away, it was heart-wrenching for him.
Yeah, they were very close.
Very, very close. And it was heart-wrenching for Mike.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, so I say now they're together.
Yeah.
They're raising hell in heaven. And if there wasn't a racetrack, there will be. There is now.
Coming soon.
There is now. But land speed racing was, it's funny because we have all this history. Mm-hmm. I was telling you before we started, I'm submitting my father's bio for, what do you call it?
The Hall of Fame.
Consideration into the Sprint Car Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And I think he totally deserves to be in there. I mean, all the work he did in South Africa and in the Western U.S. to promote sprint car racing. I mean, he definitely needs to be recognized. At least considered,
Yeah.
And but as I wrote that bio, and I said, it amazes me the amount of stuff that our family's been able to do, and how fortunate we are that we always had the businesses to pay for it. And going to South Africa, and and I went to South Africa as a team captain in '87. So I went in '82 with Dad, and in '87 I went over as a team captain and took 3 drivers and my wife.
Yeah.
We got to go spend another 2 months. It's pretty amazing. We're very fortunate. We're very blessed to have the opportunities we had, and now we're going go-kart racing.
We're going to keep it going.
We're going go-kart racing with this new generation of drivers.
Yeah.
And they're pumped up. They're excited about it, right? They want to be like their dads.
Yeah.
I could see the 2 weasels wanting to be like their dad, right? Mm-hmm. And go to the Salt Flats and get in the 200-mile-an-hour club. So I think we've done okay, Allison.
Yeah, I think so. And it is a generational thing. Andy's going to be racing, and I know Olivia's raced before, and I don't know what her aspirations are in anything else besides that, but she's definitely has raced. She raced the Roadster, right?
She had a lot of talent. She raced the Roadster and she raced go-karts. I think with Olivia, my dad was very serious about racing. If you were racing for my father, you better have some pretty thick skin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Because if you did something wrong on the track, you knew about it when you came in.
Yeah.
And I think Olivia just didn't like all that pressure.
Yeah. I don't blame her.
It was just too much for her.
Yeah.
I think she liked the driving part. She didn't like the excel, you're going to excel.
Getting your ass shoot out part.
Right. That's,
I don't blame her.
Oh, the stories I got on that. I remember one night at the pits at Bonneville Raceway, Mike got mouthy with Dad, and Dad reached in that mini stock and yanked him out. Just yanked him out of there. And that was the Nishes in the pits.
Welcome to the 70s in circle track racing, right?
Yep.
Oh, man. So were there any other stories that you have about, or something like that where it's racing, circle track racing, or that you can tell?
we if you've ever seen it in the pit, like a 60-year-old kid fighting his old man, or the 2 brothers, like rolling in the dirt over you hit me and put me out.
I'm waiting
and
for it.
And that was us. Our cars were all in the shop, right? So there was 4 sprint cars in there. One night I came in and my car's jacked up. And I'd been on fire, right? I'd been on fire. Car was hooked up and things were good. And I come in and my car's jacked up and the torsion bars are pulled out of it. And I'm like looking around, what the heck's going on? Mike comes tooling through the door with the torsion bars in his hand. And I said, hey, what are you doing? He goes, Dad told me I could take those torsion bars and put them in my car. I was like,
hell you
what the hell, you know? There might have been a little brouhaha that
Yeah,
night.
I can imagine.
TJ in Africa, I mean, he's 14 years old, right? We're going to the wineries and we're sitting down on the veranda. That didn't help the situation, right?
Right. No.
The drinking thing, right? You know, we're sitting out on the veranda in South Africa. Dude, we're drinking wine and drinking beer, and I'm 20.
Yeah.
He's 14, right? 15, and probably not good. But Melanie was 8 months pregnant when I went.
With Jonathan.
Yeah, and the opportunity came up to go, and she said, "You will probably never get to do this again.
Yeah,
you need to go."
But you did get to do it, and with her
8 months. I mean, I got home end of December, and she had the baby February 5th.
Oh my gosh, that's
right?
crazy.
I was home a month.
Yeah,
it was sketchy for sure, and but the women of our lives, they followed us. Mm-hmm. Those that have stayed. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's only Melanie. Everybody else bailed out.
Everyone's like, no.
She's the only one that
She loves racing.
She does love racing. She's the only one that survived. But we're excited now, Brady and I and Chad and everybody. We're all working on her 32.5 window. So we'll have it done hopefully for August so she can drive it to the salt and be her little get around.
That'll be her reward for dealing with all you guys.
Dealing with all of us, yeah.
So, but that record, your guys' accomplishment, I was thinking about that when you were saying those records. I don't think there is a family, I can't think of a family that is faster than you guys that has that many people in it. Is there anybody that is in the 300 chapter that has 4 members in it?
I don't think so.
I mean, yeah.
I think there's three, but not 4.
Yeah, because you got the Hammonds, and they have 3 in there. And I could be wrong, but I was trying to think, and I couldn't think of.
I think you're right. I mean, there might be one, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. But when I was kind of preparing to see it, just today, I sat down and thought, I better look at some stuff. To have a family average of 348
That's
over
incredible.
30 records.
Right.
At Bonneville. And there's been a big stint that we haven't had any records because they were trying to get that double A. They were trying to go after Summers' record, right? The 409.
Yeah.
And they chased that for probably 2011 through 2000 and now.
Yeah.
They were running those big motors, and Mike had some very, very scary rides. I don't know if you remember the one where the car would get upset, like at speed. It would just take an attitude change on him, like at 400 miles an hour. And the car would what we finally figured out was that the frame was twisting. Oh. Because of all the horsepower. Yeah. The frame would twist. It would bite in on the left side, and it would just shoot him. It would just shoot him off to the left.
Yeah, I remember that.
And you're right. He came through the return road.
At the end of the pits, right? Pretty much.
Through the end of the pits, through the return road, no shoots out. Him just trying to gather the thing up. And I think
probably happened before he knew what was going on.
Yeah, that's when SCTA came in and said, "You're not running this car again until you figure out what's happening."
Which, rightfully so, yeah, right.
Tom Birkeland came down and spent some time on the car and got it.
Yeah.
Where it goes straight again.
Of course.
So.
With a lot of information and a lot of work, I'm sure, to get it straight back.
Tom told my dad, Terry, don't call me. You either do what I tell you to do or don't call me again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Either you do the things I'm telling you now or don't call me anymore.
Yeah. I don't blame him. It was probably a laundry list.
I think he might add, and I won't be to the funeral. I think that's
that sounds very Tom-like.
I think that's kind of where that went. So yeah, that was a scary ride. Chutes didn't come out one time at 380, and he went all the way down into the mud. 2 360s in the mud.
Wow.
Gathered it up, got it straight. Took like 2 tow trucks and like 200 feet of line or cable to get out to him and hook him and pull him back in off the mud.
Is he the fastest member? Is he your guys' fastest?
Of all of us?
Yeah, of all of you.
So I always thought it was me, but I got to tell you, that's not true. My fastest two-way was 344. Mike's fastest two-way was 377.
How fast was Pam's, did you say?
Who?
Pam?
Pam got into the club. She did not go 300. Pam went 287.
Okay. Sorry, I thought, I heard
Jimmy Wysong went 310.
And what did TJ do?
And TJ ran 332.
And your dad, did he get in the 2 club first?
The 3 club?
No, did he get in the 2 chapter or did he
Yes.
do it first? Okay.
I did first.
Yes, you got it first.
But when they started running the car.
Before he got in the 3 chapter.
Dad would have got into the club in 1994. So I got in 86 and Dad got in 94.
Okay.
Mike got in 97 and TJ got in 97.
97. That's the year I graduated high school. It's a good year.
Yeah, it was a good year. That was, so Mike drove in August. I drove the first meet in September.
Yeah.
And TJ came and drove the last meet in September 97. We got it all done that
You got
year.
all the 3 chapters done in that year. That was a good year.
Was a good year. Yeah. And then, literally hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not approaching $1 million. Them chasing that.
Oh yeah,
that 409 mile an hour.
It was serious business.
They were blowing. They were on the edge on everything. Mm-hmm. They were trying different engine combinations. Klein was building motors. Darien was building motors. Mm-hmm. They spent a lot of money chasing that,
but never quite got it.
They ran 412. They just couldn't back it up. He ran 400 a couple of times, but they just couldn't.
What is that record that summer? Do you know what that is? That summer?
Well, now Poteet's moved it so high.
Poteet took it.
Yeah, Poteet has that AA record now. That was at the time AA fuel streamliner, which would have been Tom's record. Yeah, right at the time, which I think was 412. I think it was. And now Poteet's moved that to, I want to say 480.
Yeah.
It's out of sight.
That's out of sight.
I don't know what's going to happen there. But.
Maybe a 500 chapter hat's coming our way soon. I don't know. That'd be crazy.
So we got this year. We're waiting to see what the snow does, right?
Right.
Whether it melts off. Our cars are all ready. We're so bored, people, because our cars are ready from last year because it rained out the whole year, right? So the cars have been ready for a year. So I'm just like bored stiff.
And Andy's getting ready to race. He's going to carry it on. We met Streamliner.
We met yesterday down at the shop, and Andy and I and Brady, and we looked at the car and what we need to do, and. Yeah, and he's ready to go.
And what's the record he's going after?
He's going after C Fuel, which is Vesco's record, and I think it's 332.
Okay.
So he's excited. And the 400 mile an hour motor is sitting on the floor, right? Ready to go in the car. And Mike had planned get Andy in the club. Put that motor back in, and Mike was going to drive it. Okay. So Andy starts telling me how he's going to drive it. And I say, no, you're not.
My goodness.
And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, no, we're not doing that.
You don't want it. You don't have any interest in it.
I'm the responsible one, right?
Yeah.
Like to say, somebody's got to say, what is the goal to go 400? What record?
Yeah, you don't just go 400, go to 400.
You don't go 400 to go 400. There's got to be a purpose to it, right?
You got to be breaking a record. I agree 100%.
I just don't know that, so we kind of bantered that back and forth yesterday. I mean, I said, you're going to have to do some real serious convincing because your dad had some bad rides at 400, but he'd been down that course 200 times. You haven't been down that course 200 times. And if something happens at 400, I don't know if you can catch that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be the one answering to your mother, your sister.
Yeah.
And he's like, I know the risk. And I'm like, I know you do.
Right.
And I do. I know it. You know it.
He's young. You don't know how to understand how permanent the risk is.
But I'm having just as much fun running Dad's Roadster with a 4-cylinder engine on 90% nitro.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's hard.
Yeah.
And I know everybody's looking at me. The rest of the team is like, pull it out already, you know?
I'm like, put more nitro in it.
Yeah. We're going to get it. We're 5 miles an hour off. We're going to get it.
I like it.
But it's hard. And that's what I enjoy, you know? So
that's what makes it legendary.
Yeah.
So when you get that,
right.
you'll be like, did it.
Well, one day, if we get time, maybe we'll even have some more fun and we'll do dads.
Yeah. I like it.
Then we can go back and talk about racing at El Centro and Ascot with no roll cage and goggles. You know? Not quite a leather helmet, but pretty close.
Right, the step above it.
Right. He was right in that era. Of no roll cage. You know, racing with an open face helmet with goggles.
Oh, yeah. He was hardcore.
On the dirt tracks.
Yeah, Terry was hardcore. Well, this has been awesome. I'm sure I've enjoyed it, getting to know more about Mike. I learned something new about everybody on all of these. And some of the things I'm just looking through that we didn't talk about, that he's in the Dry Lakes Racing Hall of Fame and just... and we didn't even...
That's right. So he's in the Dry Lakes Hall of Fame.
Yeah. And we didn't even get to talk about... the Utah Motorsports Foundation. That's a big part of his life.
Yeah, and that's a big part of his life. And as I did my dad's thing for the Sprint Car Hall of Fame, you know, so the Utah Motorsports Foundation, Dad founded in 2007. And since 2007 until now, we've given over $1 million to help racers that have been injured or their families had some kind of tragedy. And I mean, we've helped kids with handicapped kids, you know, or racers' kids that need surgeries.
Yeah.
But the new thing, our new direction now is that we are sponsoring young drivers. So young drivers can submit their bio to the Utah Motorsports Foundation, and we pick 10 or 20.
You got scholarships going on. Yeah.
It's a sponsorship for their driving.
Okay.
It goes right. We also have the scholarship program that the kids can, but now we have a youth sponsor program.
Okay.
And we just, you know, I mean, this year we've given a couple of drivers, you know, $2,000. It depends on where they're at in their career, you know, just to help them.
That's awesome.
You know, it's hard. You know, now that you're racing
just like
with your kids.
A lot of money.
So here is a check for you for $1,500 for me to sponsor the Weasels.
The Wild Weasels. They are very thankful for this. We're very thankful for this.
You're welcome.
It is like just adds up. I'm like, gosh dang, I thought we had bought the carts and that was the big part.
No, it never ends.
I should have known better. I know racing. I know racing. I thought cart was smaller, but no, we appreciate that so much.
You're
welcome. But the Utah Motorsports Foundation, what can you go to for the website? Because you guys do raising by, do you guys still do the auction?
We take donations. We're going to do an online auction. We don't do the big one that we used to anymore. Basically because I don't have the energy my dad had. And then Mike took that mantle, you know, but I have a couple of businesses and the kids racing and I have all this stuff going on. So I met with the board and I said, look, we can still raise money. We have a good nest egg.
Okay.
And it's invested and it's making money. So
that's awesome.
We have resources, right? And so I would say if you're out there and you're a young racer, then submit your bio. Just go to UtahMotorsportsFoundation.com and
do they have to be Utahns to do it?
Nope.
Is it? Nope. Okay,
Nope.
So Utah Motorsports, or if you want to donate.
If you'd like to donate, for sure. I think so Mike's, for our local people, right, in Utah, Mike's celebration of life we're having at my dad's race shop, which is 818 West South Temple. Is that right? Yes. 818 West.
Sounds right.
South Temple. Most people know where my dad's race shop is. We're doing that on May 13th from, I think, 11 to 5.
Yep, that's what you said.
And we're going to have food and we'll probably play your podcast and we'll have.
That's awesome.
And if you've never been there's 50 years of history hanging on the walls in that place. I mean, you can just walk through there and the pictures and the memorabilia hanging on the walls is worth your time if you've never been there. So if you're a race fan or a racer or a recovering alcoholic or not even recovering alcoholic, you're welcome to come and just enjoy the day with us and kind of remember Mike. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to go through and see that. And I'm excited for this podcast to play that week that it's going to be his celebration of life. It worked out perfect.
Well, I love my brothers. TJ's back in Indianapolis and we don't get to see him a lot, but he's coming home.
Nice.
He was, and I say this all the time, probably out of me and Mike and TJ was probably the best driver.
Oh,
I seriously believe that.
Yeah. Well, he probably got to see a lot of
He was probably the best driver. He got the least amount of opportunity, right? Because he was later in the scheme of things,
Yeah.
And once the Indy Car thing fell apart, right?
Yeah.
Dad's interest in all that just kind of waned away. And,
birth order stuff, man. It
right.
really
it'll take it out of you.
Yeah.
So
Well, good. Well, this has been really fun. I loved learning a little bit more about Mike, and I wish I would have got to interview him personally, but this is the next best thing.
As good.
That's true.
He'd have hit all
he would have skimmed over all the hard stuff and just hit all the good stuff. No, it's good. That's what racing's about in life, is that ups and downs, and he lived his life to the fullest.
Yep.
So
he did it his way, and like I said, I love both my brothers, and it kind of sucks. I'm still trying to learn how to be the family patriarch now.
Yeah.
With Andy and Olivia and my kids and my brother, and it's like all of a sudden I'm the old man, and it's like not cool.
You're not ready for it yet.
Not really cool. No, not really cool.
You'll do a good job. You'll be awesome. You already have been. You're good. You've been a patriarch to a lot of your nephews and your nephews. You did all the racing with them. So
Channing's got his sprint car ready to go.
Yeah.
I went up there last week and helped him fire this beautiful race car. So we'll see how it is when he brings it home from Great Falls, Montana.
Oh, that's a fun race.
Right?
That'll be fun. Well, okay. Well, if you enjoyed this, please just go to my Facebook page or my Instagram page and like it. And please share this podcast if you can. And also don't forget to go to Save the Salt and donate. We are just trying to raise funds for the
We
salt.
need it.
Yes, for the Salt Restoration Project. You can buy a t-shirt as a donation, or you can just donate. But yeah, we are going to need that. And we just appreciate you listening. Please share, like, and thanks again.
Thanks for listening to Land Speed Legends. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, keep up with the show on Facebook and Instagram under Land Speed Legends. Until next time.